Alex Grinch said something curious about his safety play, and we're going to talk about it. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today, yes, is another longer video because there's a few things that I want to discuss, including the safeties, Bookie, Ryan Jones, Caleb Kelly, and what Alex Grinch had to say about who his starting safeties would be today. And of course, a little Zion Williamson, as Alex Grinch talked about a little bit. But first, let's pour one out for the Alliance of American Football. If you have not heard, they have suspended operations indefinitely after getting what we thought was money they needed. It might actually be for naught, because it's not necessarily that they are in a money issue, and ratings, despite what people think, have been pretty good. About 400,000, 500,000 people viewing nationally Spring League football. And I am here for Spring League football because I want football to be year-round, and I understand that it's really difficult to make that a thing because football is a terrible sport on your body. And asking folks to play it like you might play in the NHL, which is also a terrible sport on your body, or the NBA, is just flat wrong and just inhuman. I don't really like it. But if you can have multiple leagues playing it multiple times, I'm okay with that. Apparently, the NFL Players Association is not, because there's this agreement that needed to be in place that everybody thought was in place between the NFLPA practice squad players who make up the bulk of the Alliance's workforce, and it wasn't really there. Then you had a bunch of little things to us, probably big things to some, like the national title. The championship game was supposed to be played in Vegas, but there was really no agreement, so they moved it to Frisco. And now you had Tom Dundon come in with a bunch of money because, well, apparently they needed money to make payroll. And then they try to say that they didn't have a problem making payroll, that they had a problem with the payroll company. And all of this was supposed to be put to bed. Charlie Ebersol and Bill Polian, who founded the league, had told everybody who would listen, no, we have a sober business plan. This is not like the XFL of Vince McMahon. This is not like any other spring league that you've ever seen before. This is a spring league that can work. This is one for which everybody should throw their weight behind, and it turns out that ain't what's going on here. You didn't even get to finish the first season, and instead of pouring one out for all the players that don't necessarily get to collect the rest of their check, because remember, they were going to make $70,000 to play this season of football. You got Steve Spurrier talking about, I go out as a winner. I'm 7-1. The next closest is 5-3. I'm going out a winner. I understand that he feels that way, and yeah, he did say, I feel bad for the players, because he certainly is not coaching the Orlando Apollos for a check or to further his coaching career like a lot of the guys who were coaching the Alliance. Mike Singletary being another one of those. And it was fun to watch guys like Trent Richardson actually play to their potential. Watching Johnny Football for the 1-2 weeks that you did get to see him play was actually kind of fun because you got a little trash talking out of Johnny Football. But I would be just lying to you if I told you I didn't want this to work out. Now, all of our hopes and dreams are on Oliver Luck and the XFL. By the way, Vince McMahon has been noticeably absent from anything the XFL has been doing, and I don't think that's, I don't think that's coincidence. I think that's because they were told, yo, if Vince McMahon is involved in the way that he was involved in 2000, 2001, we don't want any part of this. And Oliver Luck is the businessman. Oliver Luck is the guy that ran NFL Europe, was an athletic director, was not a bad quarterback. People respect him. He was also the head of operations at the Houston Dynamo. Dude knows from how to run a sports franchise and a sports league. And we're all hoping that with Bob Stoops and Jim Zorn and Pepper Hamilton and the dudes that are running this, you can put out a pretty good product that can carry its own and can make a little money so that it can be sustainable in the future. Sad that the XFL is going to be on its own for the most part. I know that some of y'all are into the Freedom League. I'm not really into it, whatever. Spring leagues are hard. No spring league has actually worked. Odds are the XFL won't work, but I own an XFL shirt. I kind of want to get season tickets. I have 2 XFL mugs. I want it to be like the XFL that I grew up watching. It ain't gonna be. But spring football, I can do spring football. Especially as spring football for the universities is kind of, it's not really that much fun. We're doing a lot of speculating. There's a little bit of reporting, but you don't really know much because, man, I have all of your freshmen on campus and not everybody's able to play, and you're holding out kids that might even be a little bit injured, which kind of leads us into how Alex Grinch could be asked what he thinks of Zion Williamson playing football and what position he would play on the defense. Now, Alex Grinch actually gave a quote about this, which I'm going to read for you because, well, he said something that I thought was interesting as it pertains to his team, and I'll get to that in just a second. But the quote is, "Oh, good Lord," Grinch said. "No, he could play any spot." Well, if you think about any time you have a guy that has the ability to affect the passer, you find a role for him closer to the line of scrimmage. So you talk about a guy with that speed, that size, that athleticism, that would be a nightmare for an offensive tackle. So he'd probably be an edge guy. Go sack him. Which is what most people think about him playing on the defense. Some folks have been like, he'd play tight end. I've said he'd play wide receiver. It's a fun conversation to have because he's 6'7", 285 pounds and is powerful and he's quick. But it ain't like that guy doesn't exist in the league already. DeMarcus Lawrence is a pretty enormous human being who's a pass rusher. Von Miller's not necessarily got that size. But then you're talking about other guys that are absolutely dominating pass rushers. J.J. Watt, Melvin Ingram. You see where I'm going with this? It's not like Zion Williamson would be some sort of monstrosity in the NFL like he is in basketball because dudes just ain't built the way that he's built as basketball players. Matter of fact, I would say that's why they play basketball and maybe they're just a little too soft to play football. Maybe that's going to hit some of y'all in the face. If it does, fight me. I don't really care. Zion Williamson working in Oklahoma's defense, though, now there is an interesting observation because you got pass rushers. You got Ronnie Perkins, who everybody believes is going to take a step. Kenneth Mann, also on the other side. Mark Jackson. And then we're getting into sort of the conversation that I wanted to have when I put the headline together for this video. I hate headlines. I really do. I wish that I could make videos without the headlines, but here we are because YouTube is a search engine. Look, Ryan Jones, Bookie, and Caleb Kelly are the three enigmas for which Alex Grinch has to figure it out. Because he's saying stuff now like Delarian Turner-Yell and Pat Fields would be our starting safeties if we had to play the next day.
Yeah, I think it's been, through 7 days. I remember every bad play they had, but they've been a steady group. I think that would be a real appropriate way to say it. You're always fighting to find playmakers on every level of your defense, and certainly they've made their share. And I think as you go through it, and obviously that's the specific room that I coach, and continue to work with those guys to if you're one step away, why is it inappropriate footwork, is it inappropriate eyes, are we thinking too much, and some of those things. So there's more plays to be made, but as through 7 practices, probably as a whole, I would suggest that those two guys have been steady and guys that we feel that if we play the game tomorrow will be our starting safeties.
Which sounds like you're throwing, you're giving a pats on the back to Pat Fields and Delarian Turner-Yell, which I think he was doing, but also Bookie's out. Jordan Parker's out. Robert Barnes is out. Chance Sylvie just came back. Jamal Morris just got here. You're getting Jeremiah Cradell to come in. You have safeties. So for him to say that those guys would be our starters is actually just him saying those are the guys who are healthy, who are getting most of the reps. And they're getting most of the reps because a lot of guys aren't healthy and a lot of guys aren't here. I don't really think you can read into that what other folks want to read into that. And you really have to take what's being said in the spring with a grain of salt because it all shifts in preseason camp. We do this every single year. Every single year, somebody shows out in spring camp and at the spring game, and everybody wants to anoint that person. Last year, I think it was Robbie Charlton. Have you heard anything from him since? No. Last year, Levi Draper had the most tackles in the spring game. Didn't hear anything about him in the fall. Hopefully that changes. I like me some Levi Draper. But the three guys that I know are going to figure into the scheme in some way have to be Caleb Kelly, Ryan Jones, and Bookie. No matter what you think about Bookie and his height, he's 5-star corner. And apparently at Oklahoma, he's still a safety. Now, that might do some moving and shaking, but I think that he's more safety in this scheme because they're not recruiting guys that are shorter than 6 feet tall. They just don't want a short guy playing cornerback at Oklahoma anymore, as Alex Grinch is the defensive coordinator. So he'll probably end up playing that nickel spot like he was playing last year, and you get a little depth there with maybe a Pat Fields and maybe a Jaden Davis when he comes in. Another guy that can help you out that's not here. But you got to find a way for Bookie to be successful because the guy is not just super talented. He's also carrying the hopes and dreams of a lot of folks in the entire state of California, for which, OU likes to go in there and pull a football recruit every now and again. And in Bookie, You need to see the kind of jump that you saw in Kenneth Murray Jr. last year, a guy that doubled his output and figured to be a really important cog in what you were doing. And if you're running a 5 DB scheme, you probably have an option out there that has Bookie in the slot, covering up perhaps a slot receiver, hopefully not a tight end. And that is the problem, because he got torched by David Sills in the West Virginia game, mostly because the scheme was bad, but also because he ain't as tall as David Sills, right? That's a problem. Now, you got to find a way for him to do what he does well. Otherwise, you don't have a place for him in this scheme. And if you don't have a place in your scheme for a 5-star cornerback, one, could be a really terrible evaluation. Two, you know that the guy was shutting people down at IMG. And he was shutting people down all throughout high school. He's capable of shutting them down in this Division I Big 12 conference. Give him a shot. Find a place for him to be. Same thing with Caleb Kelly. Caleb Kelly moved from Sam to Will to Sam. Now apparently he's sticking at Will until we hear that he's not. This is another 5-star guy out of California that is carrying the hopes and dreams of a lot of folks. You know, another guy from the Fresno area. You need him to do well. You need him to put it together in a way that he hasn't put it together this year, in the same way that you kind of need Neville Gallimore to put it together. Caleb Kelly has to find a fit in this defense, and more than that, Alex Grinch and Brian Odom have to find a fit for him. They have to make this defense really easy for him to run and play in, because he has the tools. You know, he's a 5-star mostly because of his size and because of his ability to cover as a linebacker. I've always thought the dude is just an enormous safety that you kind of made play linebacker. Same thing goes for Ryan Jones. Ryan Jones is an athlete. I keep yelling this. When he got opportunities to play at the Sam linebacker position last year, which is a position that I think is going to be obsolete sooner or later, especially in this defense, he was showing out. Now, maybe you want to make Ryan Jones your 5th DB. I would not have a problem with that. He has safety skills. He transitioned from wide receiver to safety to linebacker because he's enormous. He's walking around at 233. So find a way for those 3 guys to be very good in what they are doing, and you'll see the defense come together. I think those are your 3 best athletes that don't have positions. Kenneth Murray Jr. might be your best athlete on the entire defense, so I really do think that he's going to end up as the starter at middle linebacker. But those other 3 guys have to figure in. They have to figure in because they've been at Oklahoma too long and they were too highly touted to not be great and to find a fit. That's the other reason why you fired Mike Stoops and you brought in a guy like Alex Grinch, is to figure out the enigma of your athletes on defense and what positions they actually play in an Alex Grinch system. I really, really, really want to hammer that. If you don't find something for Caleb Kelly, Bookie, or Ryan Jones to be good at, you're going to have to find it from somebody else, and that ain't necessarily going to be good when you want to go recruit those areas again. That's the reason you really want those guys to be good, and you want them to be good enough to beat out some of the guys that are coming in, because iron sharpens iron. When the cauldron is hot, you make some really great stuff, and you need bodies on the defense to be really good, and that's what Alex Grinch is mostly getting at. I need bodies. I need guys that are good and fit my scheme and want to go out there and win. Now, before we get out of here, I want to do this interview that I've been putting off for a while with Clio Sooner Swooner about Jalen Hurts and Jalen Hurts fandom. I am joined by Clio Sooner Swooner. I know her as a Jalen Hurts fan. Bama fan first, but a Jalen Hurts fan because Oklahoma and Bama, they don't necessarily get along until they do, and this 23-year-old man has brought us together on the phone. How you feel about that, Clio?
Well, first of all, I have to roll tide you, RJ. Can I get a roll tide for Jalen?
I mean, you can try. I mean, you can get a red tide. You can get some don't eat this shellfish. You can get, is Tuscaloosa around water or what? Explain that to me. No, real quick. Explain that to me. Roll tide and an elephant for a mascot. I don't get it.
Okay, well, I could give you like a 3-hour explanation of it, obviously. The short version, 2 different times, different sports writers way back in the day, I won't even try to pick the time because I'll get it wrong, use that metaphor to describe the team. There's that's the going story. That's the story that you hear the most. I read one recently, and again, I won't get too far into it, but there was a gentleman who owned a luggage store in Tuscaloosa, obviously Tuscaloosa, and it was a luggage store, so, suitcases were called trunks. The Alabama team goes to the Rose Bowl for the first time. They get off the trains, they've got these suitcases that this man has provided that had an elephant on them that he was using to promote his suitcases. And so the reporters see that, assume that the team's mascot is an elephant, and the rest is history. But there's a couple different stories.
Are you sure
Either
I
way,
wouldn't have read this in, like, I don't know, The Life and Times of Jakob Panafra or some Barry Hannah short story? Are you sure? Because that sounds some
Very
real
possible.
Sound and Fury stuff that you just told me right quick. Nah, but it's
Anything's possible.
cool. No, it's cool. It's cool. But so Jalen transfers to Oklahoma, and you and not a small amount of you via YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere I'm at, Instagram, show up to be like, yo, I love Jalen. Wish y'all the best. Jalen is a class act. We love Jalen. It's like, he don't even play for y'all no more. Where's that love coming from?
Well, you don't give up on your favorite player. You didn't give up on Baker when he went to Cleveland, right?
Nah.
Now everybody in Oklahoma, well, I don't know how the breakdown works between Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, but all the Sooner fans anyway are now Browns fans. And strangely enough, the Alabama fans are that way too because of Freddie Kitchens. So the more I'm around these two teams together, the more we're alike than different. It's very strange.
Yeah, except for that part where winning national championships is
Well,
concerned.
What's 10 or 15 trophies, give or take, difference?
Man, y'all and the Patriots.
Between friends.
Like, how did you feel about him? Look, I understand Belichick and Saban go way, way back. I get that.
Yeah.
I understand that he drafts some Alabama players, even if he cuts them later. But what I don't understand is the explanation for why my man's had on an Alabama sweater at Alabama Pro Day as the head coach of the New England Patriots.
Oh, it's all about the recruiting. Did you see Saban smiling when he was asked about that?
Oh, yeah.
He did it. He did it as a favor for his buddy. All about the recruiting, and I'm sure you've seen that all over Twitter. Kids tweeting it, you all talking about it, giving it more free press. So I'm seeing Alabama recruits who aren't committed yet saying, Bill Belichick Saban is the Belichick of the NFL and vice versa, or that backwards, but
I mean, old, on his way out the door.
Both of them
Only
got one foot in the grave.
Right, oh, man. Only smile when they're laughing at their own jokes. That was the thing I picked up from that interview. It's like, oh, okay, you make a funny and you gonna laugh. Anybody else make a funny and you just gonna stonewall them. All right, cool.
What I loved was I saw on from about 85 different angles the entire Alabama football team sneaking up behind them to get pictures to put on their Insta stories.
Well, I mean, all right, so that puts everything into perspective for me because my friends, they like to play this game like, yo, man, if Belichick's standing next to you in an Alabama sweater, are you gonna try to get the selfie and be like, hey, no, I'm gonna try to get him in this OU jersey. Nah,
No.
I'm gonna ask him. Yo, man, I know how much money you made because it's a publicly recorded figure. You trying to tell me you can't afford no shirt? That you gonna let these Alabama equipment managers just dress you like that with this free publicity for your homeboy?
Yeah.
And
Miss Terry, Saban's wife,
Okay.
handed it to him and he put it on, I'm sure. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. No, but they weren't taking selfies. They were sneaking up behind them. So it was all these shots of the back of their head.
That makes it even
It was
better.
so funny.
No, that makes it even better. It's like I'm not even gonna mess with him. Let me slide in here right quick.
Yeah.
No, so Alabama Pro Day came and went. Right, it's always a big deal. We can make an argument that OU's Pro Day was larger in attendance, but Belichick wasn't there. That's the joke to make, right? The joke to make is you can't hand Belichick an OU sweater because he wasn't at OU Pro Day.
Right, exactly. And it turns out everybody was represented. They had somebody from every 32 team. So I was wrong on my initial tweet. So,
Yeah, well, I don't know that they had anybody from Arizona at Pro Day.
Oh,
Yeah, but
no.
they did the whole.
Nobody looking for quarterbacks.
I'm about to say,
this year.
It's like you say, all the publicity is good publicity, and if it's something that's cool to talk about, especially in March, talk about college football. Yeah, I'm gonna be talking about what Belichick has on his body. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So, what do you expect for Jalen to do at Oklahoma?
I just want him to have a chance to go to the league. It's all I want, and I think that would probably be all that he would want. Anything else on top of that is a bonus. Obviously he wants secondhand information. He wants them to win the national championship. Now, of course, I can't get totally on board with that. I can tell you, of course, I'd rather Oklahoma win than Tennessee or Auburn or Georgia or Clemson. but I'm, I have to. That's a battle we have to fight another day. But just the opportunity to go to the league and show. I've heard so much talk about, he's not cut out to be an NFL quarterback. And I think whether he is or was when he arrived in Norman, by the time he leaves, by the time Lincoln Riley gets done with him, he will be. So
is that your way of saying that Lincoln Riley can do something that Nick Saban cannot?
Well, Nick Saban's not a quarterback coach. He would tell you that.
So
there's no.
So he can't hire good quarterback coaches. What Dan Enos do out there? I don't know.
Yeah, what was up with that? Who knows? That was an interesting story. We don't have time for that.
Where's Dan? No, we have time for that story.
Yeah, no.
Bruce Feldman, what about The Athletic? It's out there. Like, it's public knowledge now. It's not. Yeah. It's not hearsay. He talked to work one day.
Yeah.
Ended up in Miami.
Cleaned out his locker.
Well,
of course, the story on that is the wide receivers coach, depending on who you hear it from, got blessed out the day before or a couple days before when he told Saban he was going to Michigan. Because he's now, Josh Gaddis, is now the Michigan OC. And so Saban was less than pleased when he heard that. And so you can kind of imagine why Enos would want to sneak off without having the conversation.
And I wonder about that in the way that thing is held together, which is why, I got this big thing that's going to drop on Friday about Ohio State football, because I'm terribly interested in Ryan Day and what he's building and how he blew up the defensive side of their football team because they weren't very good. And the comparisons between him and Lincoln Riley, right? You can either go the way of Mark Helfrich or you can go the way of Lincoln Riley, right? And you look at the way that they run their offenses and so forth, so on. But at Alabama, everything is built on Nick Saban, which is to say, if Nick Saban happened to just decide tomorrow, I'm done, who are you going to hand the football team to?
Well, are you asking me?
I'm asking you, yeah.
Oh, well, I don't think he'll ever decide that. I think they're going to carry that man out of the facility with a sheet over his face, to be honest. He said, the only thing that I'm afraid of in life is not being around football. So, I don't know. That's one of those things we don't worry about. I know I lately there's a certain coach in Oklahoma is looking a whole lot more attractive than one in South Carolina lately. To me, everybody thinks we're going to call Dabo, and maybe so. Maybe there's some other options out there. Who knows?
Not to throw shade, but he'll get you a national championship every 20 years.
Yeah.
Now look. Bob won a national championship at Florida in 96.
No, not Bob. I don't know from Bob. Who's Bob?
Oh, you okay? Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Lincoln. I'm talking
at Alabama.
Yeah, sure.
How do you figure that?
Well,
How about Freddie? How about anybody that played at Alabama? How about that?
I think Freddie will probably decide he's fine.
Antonio Langham. How about him?
Antonio might, maybe.
I was just saying, why you got to come get the 36-year-old head coach out of Norman? That's what I'm saying.
Trolling.
Yeah, right. Right. Which is a favorite pastime of both fan bases, by the way. Like,
yes.
Your experience on the Twitters and in the various forms of social media, how do you interact? Like, is it there? Are you there to make jokes? Are you there to have a good time? How do you go about it?
I mostly am there for the information. I'm just like, if I have any topic that I'm interested in, for whatever it is, I go all in. Oh, I said all in. I go totally into it. And so I just love to get every ounce of information I can get about Alabama football. And, of course, now with Jalen at Oklahoma, my first thought was, oh, good, more football. Because, football is like chocolate. You can't have enough of it. And so it's just exciting to me to learn everything that I can. And you meet friends along the way, and it's fun to kind of laugh and joke with them too. But mostly I'm there to just suck it all up like a sponge, get all the information I can get.
Were you raised a football fan?
Oh, I'm from Alabama. Yes,
I know. I know folks from. Look, I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Okay, so every Mississippian, every Alabamian, every Georgian ain't a football fan.
Well,
That
let's just say it keeps me. There's a lot of ugly in the world. Most of my girlfriends have turned to the Hallmark Channel, and I follow the SEC network. So there you go. We'll put it like that without getting too political.
No, I like it. That's what's up, because that's why the YouTube channel exists, right? It is my happy. So
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna ballpark it here, because we were talking about Saban. We're talking about how he's not going to go anywhere. I've always felt kind of terrible about that, because look, Coach Bryant, he ain't last long after football. Coach Paterno, he ain't last long after football. I mean, we can keep going about these guys that have been coaching for a very long time that don't necessarily do much else, right? I mean, how many dealerships can one man own? Saban.
Exactly.
So I just wonder if there's a way for him to, I mean, he's in his 70s, right?
Yeah, but isn't it like early 70s? Who was it they said? Somebody being so much older.
Bill Snyder.
Oh, no. Krzyzewski. Is it Krzyzewski?
Krzyzewski is so much older than Saban?
I may have the wrong coach, because, basketball, my knowledge drops short. But
I mean,
there's somebody that you wouldn't even, nobody talks about him being so old and he's going to fall over dead. He's going to retire soon, and he's got 5 or 10 years on Saban.
I don't know. It might be me at the rate I keep putting out this content. Well, did you have
one of those guys?
Huh?
No, go ahead. I said one of those guys.
One of those guys. Did you have any questions for me?
I have tons of questions, but there's not time in the world to go over them. My goodness, I didn't know to pick one question. My goodness, what do you expect out of Jalen? We'll turn it around on you.
Win a college football playoff game.
See there, you can't bump it up a little.
No, that's it.
That's all you need.
That's all. Because we ain't had that at Oklahoma. Look, we're talking about making 3 college football playoff appearances in 5 years. How many we win?
Well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right, the same amount as Notre Dame. Okay.
Yeah.
Same amount as UCF. All right.
Yeah.
I'm tired of that. Like, if you're gonna bring the dude in, bring him in to do something that you can't do on your own, which is, like that's what it is. I mean, I gotta believe that folks fell in love with Jalen because he was able to take you to a national championship game.
Talking about Alabama fans.
Yeah.
That, and he just represents so much of the Alabama way, and I mean the people of Alabama. If you're from Alabama and your people are from Alabama, and I'm sure you're the same way with your relatives in Mississippi. Your people either worked in the Birmingham steel factories, rather, not mines, or they were like my people, were cotton farmers. Their people got up early, worked long, did the job, didn't complain, and so he just embodies all of that. And so I think that's why so many people, fell in love with his story. Just to go out there, starting off somebody who didn't complain. He was famous that first year, his freshman year, for if he'd have some problem, he'd just go back to the sidelines, wouldn't even faze him. And so, of course, getting benched, doesn't complain, doesn't leave, does his job, gets up, tries to make the team better in the way that he can. Everybody just, of course, fell in love with that story. And, of course, now you've got a lot of broken-hearted Gumps, broken-hearted Alabama fans who are, now that he's gone. But I am, of course, just over the moon happy for him because, I want to see the team do well, and whoever they need to play to make do well, that's what needs to happen. But as a Jalen Hurts fan, last year was not the funnest, we'll say that, to see him there on the sidelines pacing and putting on a good look. But he had to be miserable.
Right.
So it's
I found all of that interesting because I was one of the people stumping for let the man redshirt and give him back his year. Right. And I understand how that went and how it goes. But there were 2 things that I found fascinating about the story. Because spring ball last year into the summer, the tape was nobody asked me how I felt. Nobody asked me if anything's okay with me. Nobody asked me what I needed. And I was like, oh, okay, flex, young man. That's because I'm with him on that. Tua won you the championship, but he got you to the game. And on that other end, it was Kelly Bryant said, I'm going redshirt. And Dabo was like, look, let KB be KB. I'm not mad at that. I'm going to help the kid. I love the kid. I love all my kids, which is the way to do it from where I'm sitting. I'm becoming more of a Dabo fan every day, the way he conducts himself. But I'm not going to sit here and be quiet about a kid I thought got a raw deal. I think he should have been allowed to get that redshirt year because when you needed him, he could still play in the SEC championship game.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about Jalen should
Yeah,
have gotten a
Jalen,
red shirt
Jalen.
year. Well, of course, the problem with him redshirting is if he's redshirting, then he's not taking the second team reps or splitting the first team reps. He's on the scout team. And so he's not able to develop like he was doing it the way he did. So that, I think, is the main reason, because there was that question that he was going to, first there was a question he was going to leave. Then there became the question that he was going to redshirt and had us all. There was a story, reputable reporters who I trust, I think they just got bad information or the story changed or who knows. One thing about Saban and Jalen, we're never going to know the real story because neither one of them are ever going to talk. But there was a story that he was going to redshirt, and then he came out and came out to, it was the, I guess, fifth game of the season, came out fully dressed, and of course the Bryant Denny just went crazy. But if he'd redshirted, he wouldn't have had the same opportunity to develop like he did staying at QB2. So that's why he didn't redshirt. But as far as getting a raw deal, there's different ways to look at it, and certainly the most passionate Jalen fans are going to say he got a raw deal. I'm more inclined to wonder about that at the end of the season in that last game. I still don't think I'd ever come out and say he got a raw deal. But there's always speculation. But it's like this at Alabama, but it's like this at Oklahoma. You all have a long tradition. It's like this on any good team. The best players are going to play. And when they he of course still is the best passer. And so if you're needing to run this high-powered air raid offense, you're going to put in your best passer. So it's hard to say that Jalen got screwed over. I would never come that far and say that, but I am over the moon thankful that he has this, this new opportunity. I'm so looking forward to it. So happy.
Very cool. Well, let's leave it there then. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk with me about Jalen Hurts. Follow Clio on her Sooner account at Clio the Sooner Swooner on the Twitters.
All right.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, RJ.
All right, that's it for me. Hope you liked the longer video. If you don't, tell me about it in the comments below. Deuces.